Hey there everyone and welcome to another video. I haven't done a video in a couple of weeks. I'm sorry for that. Community PvP is going to be on the way, but I still need to get around to it. This video I thought I'd do as an interesting one in the festive spirit for Christmas. Let's make it a fun one. So I decided I would do the final master map, Adamar Sanctum, with each class. This video is just going to be for Wizard, and then there's going to be one for Archer and Knight. But yeah, the Adamar Sanctum map is insane. The suggested power of it doesn't say on the event board, but I'm pretty sure it's 250,000, because they go up by 10,000 each time, and yeah, if you sort of, count along, it's 250,000. So that is like way beyond what other people have, and what makes the map crazy is that it has so many enemies that you can't really do it at a low power, sorry, excuse me. You can't do it at a low power spamming pet skills, because they can't handle all the enemies that are there. Maybe in a party with you all spamming pet skills, that's how you can do it, but on solo, you can't do it. So what I decided is I would play this with each class and make a build that is overpowered, however much lower power than it suggests, and see how low I can be and still do it. Now this build was 150,000 power until I added Fabled Dragon Cores. I didn't really need to add them. I just did it because I realised I forgot about Dragon Cores. But anyway, so it's 160,000 power. It's got roughly 100,000 damage. This is with the damage potion on now. And 4 million armour, which goes up to nearly 15 million when I use the armour buff. I've got like everything resocketed, a load of elite jewels and elemental jewels in there. So my elemental stats, I've gone with a fire and shadow build with 800% fire and 700% shadow. And I think that Fire Shadow is really kind of the most fun one when you get to this point, and the best one for this particular challenge I'm trying to do. So I've also got 2 move speed jewels on there, as you normally would, and also a cooldown reduction jewel, which is an old one that most people have. Well, a lot of the older players have, I mean. So this, if you're wondering, is actually slightly weaker than some of the players out there have. You'll know by their power is actually higher than mine, but their armor is higher than this, and they have over 1,000% fire. So yeah, this is actually kind of similar to what some people have out there. Now, as for the skill setup, this is where it gets a bit more interesting. The passives, I've gone with just the passives that you need. You don't need any more than these. These are kind of the essential ones. The mana regain ones you need, because otherwise you don't actually regain mana using a potion. You need those on as well. Then for the setup, I've gone for a very defensive build. The only 2 skills which I'm using for damage output are Infected Pig and Flame Breath. The reason why I'm using these is these are just super powerful once you get to the end game level, because they're kind of more balanced for when you have lower elemental stats. All their damage is elemental. Flame Breath, the description's kind of wrong. It doesn't actually do any base damage. So having this at 10 out of 99 is optimal for the low cooldown. And it just does an insane amount of fire damage, which, when you have your fire stat high, is ridiculous. Infected Pig, the reason why I've gone with this instead of Mad Squirrel is because I've gone with a Fire Shadow build rather than introducing Nature as well and stuff. And to be honest, the static damage that's slightly higher on Mad Squirrel doesn't make any difference right now, because my damage is so high that only the percentage matters. And for that reason, I'm using Dark Spectre skill rune on Mimic, because this will then make Infected Pig insanely strong when I have Mimic active. And yeah, so that's my damage output. It's with those 3 skills, and I say 3. Mimic, yeah, Mimic is doing quite a lot with Infected Pig, to be fair. It's not as much as what I'll be doing, but anyway, it's good. Infected Pig is insanely strong. So those 2 skills are just doing way more damage output than anything else. And then I've got a Meteor Strike for stunning particular enemies, or otherwise just increasing my single target damage a bit more. And then Drakes as well, they do reasonably good damage. I mean, they really add to the damage output of this build. But you'll see it's mostly down to my character rather than the pet damage, which is what I wanted. So that's what I'm using for damage output. And the majority of the time I will spend, I say time, I guess. I don't know if it's time or not, but I'll be focusing on trying to keep up my defense. So my defensive skills here, I'll just talk about Spirit Armor first quickly. I put this at 82 out of 99 because getting it beyond 10 reduces the duration. So I wanted it beyond that because I wanted the strong armor boost. However, if you go beyond 82, then the duration drops off too far that when you use it, there's a gap between your defenses. Sorry. That's what I was trying to say. There was a gap where you're waiting on the cooldown and you've lost the armor buff. Now, if you go below 82, the problem is that it comes back too quickly for the duration. So if you use Spirit Armor again when it's still active, it won't reapply the armor buff. And anyway, 82 I found was the optimum for me with this particular amount of cooldown. It means that it comes off just as the buff ends, so I can then reuse it, and I just have the constant defense buff. Anyway, if you don't follow that, don't worry. But that's why I picked 82 there. And then I've got maxed protection bubble. I found I needed this just because otherwise I die ridiculously easily. So I needed this maxed for the maximum defense there. And the cooldown doesn't matter too much in this case. And then I've got Penumbra. This is a really interesting one. It's got a chance of dealing damage to the nearby enemies. That's actually pretty decent. However, the main use for this, which I have right now, is it gives you a 20% damage reduction for the duration. So that, on top of everything else, is actually very, very nice, and helps you tank very well. So I'm going to be doing those skills. Oh, I don't really need Healing Fountain. I just kind of have it in there if I need to really quickly heal or something. It's not essential, but I just have that there. So I've got everything maxed that I need to have that I want to have maxed, and what I'll mainly be doing is oh, got a bit of lag there. What I'll mainly be doing is keeping all these buffs active just before I go into the combat. Mimic I can have on constantly, so I'll be having that on the entire time, and I'll be placing a Prostrate down before then going in with my defense buffs on. I'll just put them on now. So then I'll be going in. I mimic, polymorph. So all the small enemies then become polymorphed, and Flame Breath, and that will pretty much deal with the small enemies because they're running away polymorph for 12 seconds while also getting damaged by Flame Breath. And then I can kite around my Frost Drakes and Meteor Strike the bigger enemies, and that then kills them off. So this is a very effective technique that goes through that I use going through the map. At some points I will change and I'll do it with a slightly different technique. That is with a Mimic constantly active, and I'll draw the enemies out with Frost Drake as I'm like making sure I keep my defense on. Now as they come to attack the Frost Drakes, I'll stand the other side with Flame Breath, and basically they'll walk into my Flame Breath while I'm being protected by my Drakes. And then when there are lots of small enemies there that, you know, they're crowding my Frost Drake, it's going to die, I polymorph, and they'll actually all run past me and die to the polymorph and the Flame Breath as they run past. So that's a very effective technique as well that I use at some points. I switch between the two depending on the situation. And then the boss battles are very interesting. I'll talk about them when I'm actually fighting them. There's a particular boss, the Serpent boss, that's just ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. So I have to go a little bit safer there. But anyway, so that's the general playstyle of it. And I do really like these fire and shadow elements. There's a lot in the other elements too, but I found when trying to look at the best skills for doing this, what I wanted to do, fire and shadow were the ones that stood out. So yes, anyway, I'm going to be getting on with the run now. There's nothing more I want to say, so wish me luck. I'm going to be doing it with no deaths, hopefully. Alright, so here we are in the master map. If you notice my potions, I died in under 2 minutes last run. I spent the evening, Christmas Eve, with my family, and I was kind of not really in the zone coming back to this, so I completely messed up. So anyway, put a Drake down in the beginning, and then go straight in there with Polymorph and Flame Breath. I'm actually going to follow these guys down, because then they die off to the Flame Breath. I'll talk about it in another video, I think. Flame Breath doesn't quite work exactly how I thought it did. Turns out it's actually slightly different. I thought you just needed to tag them and then it didn't matter if they ran away out of range, but you do need to stay within range. So I Meteor Strike this guy who slows me, because then it stops him from slowing me, except it didn't that time, but because I went too close. But anyway, that's because sometimes it's a bit of trouble getting close enough to polymorph them if he slows me, because they kill off the Drake too quickly and then they'll turn around and attack me. But anyway, it was still fine in the end. So same thing again here. Put the Frost Drake in first, groups them all together, can do the polymorph. I better take out this guy because he's going to spawn more enemies. There we go. And my buffs were off, but that was fine. Still survived. I'm actually going to wait for them to come back. It's actually good timing because there's enemies here. Okay, there we go. Sorted. Bus back on. Now this can be a bit of trouble with this big dude here. I'm actually going to polymorph before all the small enemies get in because I need to back off. This is where I'm going to draw them out and stand behind my drakes, killing off the majority of the enemies with my my flame breath as they come near. And you saw there as well, I put in a polymorph which got rid of a lot of them, and then yep, now you can see all the enemies gone. Not really too much threat of death there. And then we've got these annoying guys. I'm actually going to have to later on. There's some serpents, and it's a tough fight. So I have to again back off and actually draw the enemies out of the area because there are too many enemies there to deal with, along with the serpents that don't get polymorphed. So again, you see here they all run past me as soon as they get polymorphed, which makes them very easy to hit with flame breath. Now this Shroud Impaler can be a bit annoying, so I'm going to back off just a little bit. There we go, he's gone. Get the buffs on. These guys I can just take out with flame breath. That'll be fine. I'm going to use a polymorph here just for good measure. So yeah, I hope this is kind of example enough that it really is. Flame breath and polymorph are the two hugely damaging skills. Is that enemy just okay, it's disappeared, but there's a health bar. There we go. Right, what should we... We've got all the buffs coming. Let's just wait a second for Mimic, so I can make sure that's on. Okay, now here I want to draw the enemies down, polymorph them, and again run back. I'm going to put on a Healing Shrine just to make sure we're safe. That guy's going to come off polymorph behind me. Don't particularly want that. And I'll use another polymorph just because there are a few enemies there. They ran the wrong way though. You meant to run past me. Okay. Probably safe to go forwards and then polymorph these enemies that come in. I'll just keep Flame Breath going, and quite a bit of lag there, but all good. Enemy's dead. Okay, so now I'm going to draw these enemies out because there's the, what do you call it? There are the 3 serpents that appear if you go into that area. They're not actually there already. But they appear as soon as you go into the area. So better to deal with what you have first before you have to take them on. And you've got to watch out for that attack. These guys range, and they do a very nasty amount of damage. Well, everything kind of kills me off really easily, so I have to be wary of it all. But those kind of things in particular. Whenever I do any of these kind of setups, my skills are in slightly different places. I try to have certain skills in certain places to kind of, you know, so I can play. But sometimes there are certain skills like this, I don't normally use Penumbra. So that skill for me is normally Polymorph, which is on the other one. And it feels weird being on the other one. So I'm going to use Drake here so I don't actually get knocked on the ground. Oh, I say that. I was too close. If you do it from a range, then you don't actually get knocked on the ground. And it means you can start placing down a load of drakes. So this first boss isn't too bad. He doesn't really do a lot. He smashes the ground, and when he smashes the ground, he doesn't actually do any damage to you if you're nearby, but he creates these meteors. So you've got to watch the ground for targets and make sure you're not standing in any, and then you're safe. And other than that, he's just got that nasty melee attack, which is fine if you get hit once when you've got like the defense buffs on. So that seems okay. The next boss, I'm actually going to use autoplay because it's pretty easy and doesn't do anything except create some small enemies. So basically, I just spam the drakes off with this autoplay, and I can annihilate it. I think, has it got a range attack? It might have one range attack. But as you can see, it kind of gets destroyed by the autoplay. There's nothing I need to move for, so I can just take advantage of the fact this spams a load of skills. It doesn't use Polymorph, though, very effectively, so I could have been clicking to try and use that as well. Now, this guy is a bit annoying. He creates a few areas. He's the one who's from Castle Somar, and he mostly gets locked down by the frost drakes, as you can see right now. However, if he does attack, if he stomps the ground at all, then you've got to run quickly, because he creates an area where you just die incredibly fast. So yeah, thankfully he didn't, but that's the risk with him. Now this serpent, he also raises his sword up in the air and doesn't attack here. Okay, I may die right now because it's just like frozen. I've had this problem before as well. No, why is it frozen now? Okay. Oh, I didn't die. Wow, somehow I didn't die. Yeah, so he also raises his sword in the air and like sends out a big shockwave. So he's very hard to fight in melee, and you've got to watch out for his moves. So this boss is ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. It's got this poison move, which like poisons you if you stand near it. Where it's got a kind of weird hitbox that hits a lot bigger than it shows. So I'm going to be, yeah, there we go. It used it and I just instantly died. I don't think I had the armor buff on at that point. But basically, to do this guy, I just have to stand back a long way and spam him Drakes. So I'm going to pause the video because basically what I do is just sit here and spam Drakes there. That's kind of the way to do it, which you do at any stage. Like I mean, maybe if you were like ridiculously strong, you could tank the damage it does. But that poison damage, you saw it one-shot me, and that was when I didn't have the armor buff active. However, if you do have the armor buff active, you'll see that's actually a damage over time, and it hits with quite a few hits. So to tank it is ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. So anyway, I'll see. Yeah, the boss health is going to take a little while to go down, so I'm going to pause the video here, and I'll see. You can see it's 35 minutes on the potion, so we'll see how long it actually takes. Actually, I got bored. I decided just to kind of go for it. I turned on invincibility and got his health down. So we're going to go on to the actual Adamar boss, and he's not too bad actually. He's got a couple of interesting moves. That one which he kind of shows as he enters, which is the sort of smash around him. So if you stand right next to him, you're at big risk of dying. However, if you stay back, the only real risk you have, there's actually an audio cue to let you know it's coming, which is when he puts his arms up in the air and shoots down these sort of shadow lasers. So yeah, you can see them coming down now. However, with the Drakes, he just kind of targets them, so it's no worry at all. So yeah, he's really not too bad. You just need to stay behind where your Drakes are and look out for him raising his arms up. And when he does, just quickly move from the spot you're on. So yeah, that's the final boss there. That's him down, and the challenge map done. So really, overall, it's only the Serpent that's the huge issue, and that's mainly because you can't tank the damage output of it. But you can still stand back and spam in Frost Drakes. It's just a little boring to do that. So that's doing it with a wizard of 160,000 power. I'm going to see how much power I need to do it with a knight and an archer. I'm expecting they'll probably need a bit more because the archer will need enough to kind of be able to tank. I'm not sure if the decoys will do it right, so that may need a lot more power. Knight though is very interesting. I really enjoy doing hard maps with Knight because they've got a lot in there which can make them literally invincible, as well as some great ways to get damage output, especially air effect damage output. So it should be fun clearing out all those small enemies and actually doing it probably better than the wizard. Sorry. So yeah, that should be good fun. I'll be doing archer next though, and we'll see how tough that is. I hope you enjoyed watching this video, and you can see how annoying this test environment is that I have, where it just like crashes like this. But anyway, so thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you in another video soon.